All right, we are back again this Sunday evening. Search for Huru. I have the brother, my good dear brother, Awini Baba, all the way from Ghana on with us tonight. And we're going to be discussing African writing systems and how Africa is the birthplace of writing. What we've been told is that basically before Europeans came, Africans didn't write, and that we communicated everything orally or through griots. So Awini is gonna speak on how we were writing, probably going to how a lot of the history that was written was probably destroyed during colonialism. Um,
Mhm.
so we wanted to get on that, touch on that subject because again, often in schools, we are taught that we didn't have a writing system. Africans didn't create anything. We're being told that we didn't build the pyramids, that we didn't contribute anything to humanity. So today we just wanted to focus on writing. So, Brother Awini, thank you for coming on, and let's get started.
Thank you very much, Dynast, and good evening to everybody, and good day to others. It depends on where in the world people are listening from, so the time may vary, but it's good to be. Uh, I think that this subject deserves a lot more attention than we have given it. Some of you might have come regarding African writings.
Awini,
Mhm.
you were breaking up. I just wanted to let you know.
Oh, yeah. Let me relocate myself. How is it now? How is it now?
That's better. That's better. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So I was saying that this subject has not been given as much importance as it should be given. And I know that some of you might have come across this information about writing in Africa and how our ancestors pioneered in writing. Uh, we are often, and I don't know if this is intentional, but the narrative is usually, you see, when people, those who have sought to obliterate us from history
Yes.
and to do what Professor Clark calls to remove us from the respectful commentary of history. This is the most important thing in the world, is if we allow anybody to remove us from the respectful commentary of history, we will become a people without a past and a people who haven't done anything and a people who do not deserve respect in the new world. You see, this is what some people are trying to do to us,
Correct.
and we must not allow it. Now, very often, people, because they have been pushed beyond a point, where they can keep denying, they have reluctantly admitted that Africa is the birthplace of humanity.
Right.
Yes. Reluctantly, though. And then people say it, they say it in passing. They say it, they kind of gloss over it. When you say some place is the birthplace of humanity, what are you talking about? Are you saying that humanity began in Africa and then that was the end of it? Basically, what this glossing over of this historical fact is that what people don't understand about this glossing over is that people don't want to admit the things that happened as a result of our ancestors being the beginners of humanity. We began humanity, then what else did our ancestors do? We didn't just procreate and that was our contribution to humanity. We also contributed to the understanding, the cosmology and cosmogony and the sciences and every major field there is today in the world. And people will give you credit for being the source of humanity, but they won't give you credit for contributions, the intellectual contributions that our ancestors made, and which basically Europe is benefiting from now. So this is very important to put it in context, that we are not only the cradle of humanity, we are also the cradle of civilization. And within that civilization, we find writing. Today we will deal with writing. The Egyptian systems did not just pop up. They went through various stages of development. You trace writing all the way to the rock arts of the Sahara. Way back, the Sahara was forest. It wasn't desert like it is today. You see? So there has been migration from the Sahara, and you find engravings, writings in the caves, in the Sahara. The writings predate Kemet, but for the purposes of an organized writing system, Kemet. And Kemet is the oldest. Kemet is Egypt.
Right.
Kemet is the oldest writing system anywhere in the world. You see, about 3,400 BC. So you can imagine when our ancestors had finally gotten to, and we must also chip this in. We were not only writing like you have the hieroglyphics, which were writings on the walls and monuments and so on. We were not only doing that. We also developed what you call the hieratic system, writing system, still in Egypt. You see, and we went further to develop what you call the demotic systems. The hieratic was more for the priests to use in their work around 2750 BC, and we went further to give the ordinary people a writing. You see, now this was at the time the world was writing. We have to bear that in mind. The Greeks, as far as we know, started with the linear A and B tablets, and these linear A and B later on proved not to be effective because they had to abandon them and then copy a writing system from the Phoenicians, and the Phoenicians themselves admit they're writing from the Egyptians, who are Africans.
Right.
You see, and so it's from the Greek writing systems that the Romans got their writing, and it's from the Latin or Roman writing system that virtually all of Europe got their writing. So the ABC that they use today, virtually all European countries today use the ABC. And the Roman alphabet is derived from Greek. It's derived from the Greek alphabet. It's only Russia that writes still using a derivative of the Greek and so on. You see? But basically, all of the Europeans, without the Latin or Roman system, they wouldn't be writing. And without the Greeks, the Romans would not get their writing system. And without the Phoenicians, the Greeks will not get the writing system. And without the Egyptians or the Africans, will not get the writing system. So I will point you to one professor who his name before, Dr. Theophile Obenga.
Okay.
And he used to work with Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop.
Okay, from Senegal.
Yeah, so Sheikh Anta Diop from Senegal, but Theophile Obenga is from Congo.
Okay.
You see, and he is a very high ranked on the issue of linguistics. That is his ace. So I would encourage people. There are YouTube videos on this. I would encourage people to look up YouTube. Look up Dr. Theophile Obenga. He gave some lectures in the United States on these issues. He also wrote books and he still maintained that Africa is the writing. You see, and we need to acknowledge this and
Yeah.
make sure that we don't lose this history as we move along. So um, later on, we can talk of other writing systems. The Meroitic writing system, which comes from Kush,
Okay.
relating to Sudan and going to Ethiopia, writing system. This is also another writing system that was developed by Africans south of Egypt. Well, we're not sure about that, but then we can still point to Nubian writing systems. You
Okay.
see,
Let me ask you this,
that's the
Awini. Let me ask you this. You said Nubian writing system. So you're speaking of what is known as Sudan today, correct?
stretching to Ethiopia.
Right, right. So
But
now,
Egypt is still part of that, by the way. I'm not removing
right,
Egypt
right.
from
That's what I was gonna say. Now, wouldn't didn't
removing.
Egypt kind of originate from the Nubians?
Yes, Egyptians. It depends on which stage you're talking about. From what we even understand, the early Egyptians came from the heart of Africa. That's why some of their gods, like Bes is the god of the Twa, and the people we derogatively call the pygmies, which is a wrong name. We shouldn't call them that. Uh, the Egyptian god Bes, which has become very important in Freemasonry today. Its origins is in the heart of Africa with these smaller people. So of course, Egypt is the daughter of Nubia or Ethiopia.
Yeah,
You see, so we are not
can we say that Nubia is the father of Egypt?
sure. We're just saying that it came from and the Egyptians did say this. I'm going to give you another source of information on this that clearly dismissed all the things. This Dr. Theophile Obenga and Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop called a UNESCO conference on the peopling of Egypt and the deciphering of the Meroitic script. I encourage people to look up that document. It's a document you can download off of the internet. And in this, some Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop and Theophile Obenga convincingly squashed a lot of the misconceptions. People were saying the Egyptians, Europeans, whatever that means. I don't know. But all of these things were thrown overboard. And finally, when Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop decided to prove his case without any iota of doubt by taking melanin samples from the mummies, was turned away. Why did they turn him away? Because they know what is going to be pro-African. You look at, and if you don't need to be an anthropologist to know this, but if you look at the features, the facial features of the Sphinx,
Yes.
the main Sphinx and Giza, this is clearly an African face. It's similar to the face you see in America, in that statue, in the Mexican area.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
have
yeah, 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 yeah. I know you're talking about. I know you're talking about. Yeah.
you
I know what you're
see,
talking about.
yeah, you see these features, and it's the Olmecs of
All
America.
mixed, yeah.
They So when you read these books, and I've read other European writers too. Not all of them are biased, by the way. The reason why we are coming across this information is because Europeans who learned from Africa were not ashamed to state so. The Greeks, and this is how come Dr. Theophile Obenga says he learned Greek, Old Greek, and he
Okay.
reads ancient Greek, and so he
Okay.
on the manuscripts, the original script, to read them for himself. You see, and the Greeks did not deny the things they learned from the Egyptians. They didn't. They stated categorically what they learned from from the Egyptians, including philosophy. And they stated that the word philosophy is ancient, is alien to the Greek language. It has no Greek origins. So not to stray away from that. But I want to people want to shift Egypt away from Africa. There are enough evidence to even prove that what you call the Middle East today was an extension of Africa itself. The
Right.
Suez Canal. The Suez Canal is a recent thing that it took about 10 years to create the Suez Canal. When you look at some of the black Indians, they look very similar to East Africans in terms of their features. You see, there's no mistake about where Egypt is and what Egypt was in, the created Egypt. And to even make solid, when you go to America and look at the Mayans, you go in the Mayan caves and they painted themselves black. You see? So it's no coincidence. You go to Cambodia, and you see the same black features there. And so it's no coincidence. Nobody can fool us now. The information is so compelling. People don't want to admit, if you understand, you have no significant contribution to ancient history. They try to belittle history and tell you, they were primitive and, they didn't contribute anything. Why? Because their ancestors contributed to that. Some people just came on the scene, and so they want to do everything possible to give themselves some validity. And it's very sad to do that by discrediting others. So not to stray away from that.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. So the Meroitic script, found around the Sudan area, people don't understand the pyramids. Pyramids are not only found; you find a lot of pyramids in Sudan.
Right.
You find,
in fact, the majority of pyramids are in Sudan.
In Sudan, so it tells you something, and it's no coincidence. You go to American pyramids in Asia, Cambodia. So what is this telling us? It's telling us that in way back then, we as a people were all over the world. Now this is what people don't want to deal with. And Africans were all.
Let me cut you. Let me ask you a question, Awini. So here in America, you have a group of individuals who are saying that they're not African, that they are indigenous to America, that even though their skin is black, they don't identify as black, that they're indigenous to America, and they have nothing to do with Africa. And my argument to that is just because you're, I guess, native to America, you still are native to America, but originate from Africa, and they reject it. And these are black, this is like, you have the Hebrew Israelites, the Moors. Now you have this other movement of obviously black people who want to renounce their African culture, their African origins, and say they're already here, that they're not African. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, well, you see, it's only an issue of why they are doing this. You see, we have to understand why. They're not the only people doing that, by the way. If you go to Asia, what the people call the Dravidians, they don't identify with Africa.
Right. In India, right? The Dravidians, yeah, exactly.
And you go to the Pacific Islands, like Papua New Guinea. You go to Vanuatu. These are all black people. The problem, I feel, is a lack of consciousness, and it's not only there, by the way. Even in Africa, until recently, Africa as a common identity did not exist. Let's be real about it. So, for me, I find it unfortunate because we are the same people, whether or not you identify, you're still black. The world is going to see you for who you are. and they're
Right.
going to identify you with Africa. Whether you like it or not, that's how it's going to be. So what we need to do is to intensify education and bring the consciousness level up in the world, and then to identify with each other. We are one people. There's no reason why we should not identify with each other. You see, so it's very sad, but don't be depressed by it or surprised, because some people are just talking from an unconscious level. Look, if you study Sheikh Anta Diop, book called Pre-Colonial Black Africa, he even shows you that Malian kings, they traveled to America. Some of them went there and never came back to Africa.
Abu
You see?
Bakari. Abu Bakari.
Yeah, Abu Bakr, exactly. And they went there, and the reason probably they didn't return is they were the same as the people over there.
Right.
So who is to say that way back then, the voyage and populate America, So there's been movement all over the world, and Africans were doing that before anybody came on, and we need to make no mistake about that. We have been doing this traveling. People say, how was it possible to travel on the ocean and so on? People, you go and see the hieroglyphics and Kemet and so on. They clearly show you boats, ships and others. It doesn't make sense that a people pyramids could build. So it doesn't make sense. People are always playing these tricks and try to deny stuff,
Right.
For whatever reason. I don't know. But to go back to the issue, the Meroitic script, comes from Awini, which is in Sudan. You see, Egypt at first, you see, the problem we are having with Egypt right now is we are looking at it as a modern state. But Egypt was not confined to the modern boundaries that it has been given today.
Okay.
So for all you know, Sudan and stretching all the way coming to Ethiopia and so on could have been part of Egypt.
Okay.
You see?
Right.
Exactly.
It was part of Egypt.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, it's difficult to clearly say that what is called Egypt today used to be Egypt, and Egypt is a Greek name, by the way. There is Kemet, that is more
land of burnt faces, Egypto.
Yeah. So yeah. So the issue is that we need to understand. A lot of people. This is a thing that I want to address. A lot of Africans, and this is why I keep talking about tribalism and all this elitism, and I find that it's an enemy of Africa. People, for instance, who are in West Africa today, they don't want to associate with Egypt because they don't see the connection.
Yeah, it's all Arab now.
Yeah, and because they cannot see the connection, they feel that to give praise to an ancient culture that is not theirs would be to look down on their own. You see, it's still this tribal thinking, which we need to dismiss immediately.
Right.
The whole of Europe looks to Greece as their source of civilization and pride. Europeans always look to Greece. But Greece is just yesterday compared to Kemet. And Kemet is lying there, stretching to Ethiopia and other areas. They're lying there unclaimed. And Africans are reluctant to claim Kemet. And the Arabs cannot claim Kemet. They have nothing to do with that. You see, the Europeans cannot claim Kemet. It is only claim Kemet. If you look at the dressing, a lot of these people were shirtless. If you look at a lot of the Egyptian drawings, it's only sometimes you find a priest in a complete dress, but the fashion of being shirtless and so on. The language, and that's why I encourage people to read that document on the peopling of ancient Egypt. This is a recording, basically, or what you call a transcription of what transpired at the conference, the UNESCO conference, and in which Sheikh Anta Diop, Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop, and Dr. Teofilo Benga made the case, which cannot be denied. You see, and so we need to address ourselves. They looked at language. They looked at anthropological features. They looked at all of these. You know, they looked at Egyptian accounts. The Egyptians claim that they came from the foothills of the Nile, that they come from the beginning of the Nile.
Okay,
and the Nile,
whoa. So let's stop right there. So what we know about the Nile is that it flows, what's the word? I guess south to north. So the foothills or the beginning point of the Nile will be
Uganda, Ethiopia, you know, Lake Tana and all that. This is what they're talking about. You see, so nobody, and even when you go into the mythology, a lot of it is still being practiced in Africa today.
Mm-hmm.
The belief systems, like I pointed out, Bes is a god, and Bes is always shown with a cross on his chest. You see, and Bes is a god that is known to the people mistakenly called pygmies, like the Twa, you know, and the Hutu, and you know, and so on. So these are the oldest people on earth. The early man was smaller than we are today, according to the history that we have read. And I will point you to another British writer, Albert Churchward, and he wrote a book. He wrote several books. But if you read one of his books called Signs and Symbols of Primordial Man,
okay,
you will see he makes a lot of references to how humanity started and how we have always been the beginning, and we did a lot of things that we are not given credit for. So not to go off too much, but the Meroitic script is still African, and later on there was even another script called the Nubian system,
okay,
which was also in Sudan, around that time. And then you go to Ethiopia, and they have a writing which comes from the ancient language of Ge'ez, Ge, with an apostrophe, and then Ez, Ge'ez. And Ge'ez is used to write main Ethiopian languages, such as Amharic, such as Tigrania, such as Oromo. And this writing system, by the way, is still officially being used in Ethiopia as we speak. You see, so this again is an individual writing system developed by Africans for use for several purposes. So what are people talking about when they say Africa had no writing? What we can admit as Africans, and I think world over it was like that, it is only around the time of the Industrial Revolution that there was this mass education drive, and so it spread literacy, and everybody we wanted to get some skills for which they needed to learn how to read and write. In the ancient times, it wasn't like that. So it does make sense that you will go with it among a people, and there is ancient secret knowledge that is not given to everybody, because in our systems it's all about responsibility, and so there's sort of a whole secrecy and protection of knowledge in African society. You see, so when people came to Africa and found that some Africans could read, a few Africans could read, and others couldn't, they drew a wrong conclusion to say that Africa has no writing. That's not true. That's not true. At a point in time when Africa was writing, Europe was totally illiterate.
True.
In their own language.
And so the Moors came,
Yeah, definitely. First through Greece, then later through Spain. You see, we influenced Europe. So there's no denying this. So Geese is used to write Amharic and others. And you even have, you go to the Sahara area, the Berbers also have their writing system. Berbers are related to the Moors. They are the Moors of Africa, you see. And they also developed their own writing system. Later on, another writing was derived again called the Ajami writing system, used to write. This one had a lot of Muslim influences, so used to write Fulani language, Hausa, Kanuri, and others. And these are undoubtedly African writing systems, inventions that we have not been given credit for. Now, even after the Europeans, the Roman system came here, we were still inventing our writing. I have not even mentioned the NCBD writing system coming from Nigeria,
Mm-hmm.
Calabar people. You see, the NCBD is still alive, by the way, but most of us will never hear about it unless through a lecture or something, because we're not using them enough, because we have adopted foreign writing systems and we're using them. There's another writing system which is very developed called the VI writing system, VAI, the VI writing system coming from around Liberia. You see,
Okay.
very sophisticated, very developed. And this is even after the Europeans came here. And this writing system was developed without influence by any writing from outside, which is to show you that the African ingenuity
Yes.
for creating writing has lived on, still alive. You see, you can even talk about still in Liberia another writing system called the Bassa
Okay.
alphabet. Which was also developed by for the Bassa people to write, because they were responding to the arrogance of the Europeans who kept claiming that Africa had no writing and we couldn't create our own. You see, uh, we have the Mende writing system. We have
You did you
writing systems like
you said the Mende in Sierra Leone? Is that what you said? Yeah, Mende, Sierra Leone.
Mende.
Okay.
I've not even mentioned what comes from Cameroon. There's a writing system from Cameroon called the Bamum script,
Okay.
developed by a sultan called Enjoyer, who was also responding to the arrogance of the Europeans who just came and were claiming we had no writing and we couldn't develop our own writing. There's another writing system called the Inco, which was developed by Lomana Kante from Guinea. We have the Pele writing system. This is also coming from Guinea. I am even later on to learn that even the also have the writing system. A lot of writing systems are even kept secret today. Even till today, there are writing systems we may never hear about because they are to people for special reasons and for communication on special things. And like from I can sit among elders, they will speak the language I'm familiar with, but I won't understand anything, because when you hear what they talk, it just doesn't make sense. They begin to talk like mad people, but they're communicating. You know, so we have all of these systems of knowledge that they are hidden for some purposes, but it's now time to bring out some of them, in order to instill that pride
Okay.
in Africa, that we are not, we are definitely by no means a people who did not have writing. We invented paper. What did you think we did that for? paper through the papyrus reed.
Mm-hmm.
So and we wrote books. People were claiming, so where are the books? We wrote books. Some of them.
Well, a lot of a lot of them will say Timbuktu, which is one of the most
Yeah,
important universities at one time. A lot of the books were destroyed through invasion.
definitely, definitely. Definitely. And some of them are in family libraries right now. There are still
Yes.
books in Mali.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they decided not to keep them at one place so that people can destroy, like what happened to Alexandria. You see,
Mm-hmm.
in the case of Alexandria in Egypt, the whole library was burned down, and that was the end of it.
All right.
You see, but in a case, it's better to keep the smaller libraries at the family level, for posterity's sake, if not for anything. So this brings me to the question: why is it that a lot of African languages will not borrow these more equipped writing systems, write their languages, and still use the Roman alphabet? You see?
Hey, listen, somebody in the chat room, Chocolate, said the Chinese invented paper. What's your
True.
rebuttal to that?
The Chinese invented paper as the modern paper, but the first kind of paper was what you call the papyrus, created from the papyrus plant. I want them to check it out. Egypt was writing on papyrus. This is the oldest writing on paper anywhere, and I challenge you to look that up. That before the mass production of paper in China, the ancient Africans in Egypt were writing on what is called papyrus, which is a plant. It's a plant that grows on top of water.
Mm-hmm.
It's paper-like. You pick that out and you treat it. Squeeze out the water and it becomes paper. This is the first paper. So let me ask the one who asked the question. Our ancestors wrote medical books. It's papyrus, and we call the books papyruses. You see, uh, they surely didn't come from China, did they? And we were doing this before Chinese invented paper. Go look it up. Mhm.
Okay, I guess Chocolate will respond shortly. Okay, so let me ask you this, Weenie.
Mhm.
Africa is very tribal. Instead
Mhm.
of, I guess, redeveloping all these writing systems, do you think it will serve the best interest of Africans as a whole to choose? And a lot of people are going to disagree with this, but I low key I somewhat agree with it. Choose one language, one writing system, and make that the
Yeah,
universal language and writing system for all Africans.
that is going to be difficult to implement. It's a good idea, but it's going to be difficult to implement because even in Africa today, we have French, Portuguese, English, and Afrikaans, and so on. Uh, in terms of how it's going to work, there's going to first of all have to be consensus. There's going to have to be the political will, and people are going to be they will have to be assured that this is not to wipe away their language. For instance, I have heard people suggest, by virtue of the fact that Swahili is the most widely spoken African language.
Yes, is that true? I think it's true. Or
So people have argued that why don't we use this as a common language across Africa? A lot of people will object to this. You see, but the irony of it is, while we object, we have no problem using a European language, which is which is not African, anyways.
right.
So there's going to have to be some consensus on the issue. I think that I'm not looking at Europe as an example, but I'm trying to see uh, examples of unified continents like the EU. right?
Mhm.
And you go to Europe, it's only in Great Britain that English is spoken officially. English is the official language. Every other country in Europe apparently has its own language,
Correct. No, you're right.
right? And they seem to still find this common ground for unity. So for me, I think that yes, the language gap, and sort of finding a more convincing basis for unity. And the most convincing basis for unity is that if not for anything at all, we can learn from states, which is a unified continent, 50 United States, that together and integrate. There are benefits to be derived, and we need to be working toward this. But as far as I feel we should give some of the languages a try. For instance, Ethiopia is still using its writing, right? Uh, and it'll be interesting to know, to find out how far Ethiopia has gone in terms of using it for higher level and so on. You see, and whether we can. I have no problem, for instance, whatsoever using, for instance, Amharic or Swahili to as an official language. No problem at all. But how many Africans will agree to this? It's going to be because there's going to be tribal pride that will come in and say, "Is their language better than ours?" But,
Right.
mm, so
Which,
so
which is a huge issue now as far as tribal pride.
yeah, it's one of the, if not the one of the biggest social problems in Africa today, stems to others. And so
Hey,
the
Awini, I
practice
wanted to,
so-called unity.
Awini, real quick,
Mhm.
you're breaking up a little bit.
Uh,
A little bit.
is it better? Am I clear?
Yeah, that's better now. It's better now.
Okay, so this practice of so-called tribe, and I don't want to look. I like the fact that Africa has produced so many strands of languages, and a lot of them are very related. For instance, I was shocked. I was listening to music from Mali, and I could hear a lot of the words in there from the language, the Bambara language. You see, and I later on discovered, it's totally related to a lot of the languages across the West African belt. You see, so there's a lot of similarity. What we are doing is to emphasize the few differences rather than celebrate the similarities, and say, yeah, I have found my long lost brother, or sister. People don't want to do that. People want to celebrate very, very minute differences that
Right.
exist between them, and to use that as not as a unifying force, but as a force to divide. And people don't want to deal with this fact. You see? So, for instance, you look at Nigeria, Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, Fulani, and so on. But so if you're going to go in there and say, okay, so here's how it's going to work. You are all one people, including the smaller tribes, so-called smaller tribes, and so on. There's going to be a protest. People are going to say, that I deserve a larger share because I am superior,
Right.
whatever that means. You see, so we need to come out of this thinking. If we want to really develop, we need to find some respect for each other and to work with each other, on things that are mutually beneficial, to integrate our economies and find workable solutions around problems.
Mm-hmm.
You see, if you look at the Biafra issue right now, it's very sad. And a similar thing is happening in Spain as we speak, Catalonia,
Right.
you know, and, and, and it just goes to show that some people in Spain, the Catalonians are unhappy with what they're getting. Some people are also saying it's tribal. You see, that people just, they want their own country and so on and so forth. You see, but at this point in time, I do not think that creating a state within a state like Biafra breaking off and all of that, I don't think that's what's going to solve our problem. A similar thing happened to Sudan,
Right.
and the country broke up.
Right.
And look at the crisis in Sudan, especially southern Sudan right now.
And it looks like Southern Sudan is about to break up.
You see, so all of this, while we need to begin to, see things for what they are, and the reality is that we got shortchanged, and our thirst for elitism, and all this respect for, us broad daylight, all of this has to stop
Right.
if we want to make any progress. And so, how language fits into this? This man, Yahya Jammeh, once announced that he was going to.
That's the former president of Gambia, right?
Yes.
Okay.
He once announced that he was going to ban or remove English as an official language in Gambia. Use the local language. You see, and I don't know how far he went, but it obviously didn't happen because so a lot of these things, they require a lot of planning and developing the writing system. So and I don't know why Africans do not want to borrow from each other. We are very comfortable borrowing from Europe, from China and Japan or wherever, but we can't be humble enough to say, our brothers over there have a writing system. And if you notice, a lot of the African writing systems, they are better suited for other African languages.
Right.
In terms of the development of the syllabus and the vowels and so on and so forth. And this has corrupted a lot of our names in Africa. You go to Accra.
Mm-hmm.
Accra is a corrupted name. It has no meaning. It's the Europeans who corrupted the name Accra. They corrupted the original name to Accra. The original name is Nkrani. You see? So if you allow somebody to corrupt your name and to turn it into something that doesn't mean anything, you see, you lose the value of the name. So a lot of names in Africa cannot be traced back, and it's difficult to do historical studies because we have compromised and allowed foreigners to corrupt our names and call and pronounce our names anyhow. You see, and also sometimes it's because when we were spelling the names in the new language, the new writing system that was brought by the Europeans, the Roman writing system, the Roman writing system was not equipped enough for certain pronunciations in our languages. So we ended up with distortions. You come up north, there's a town they call it Yendi.
Mm-hmm.
You see, there's no such thing as Yendi. The name is Yeni. You see, so you find all of these distortions. You see, you look at the ancient kingdom, they call it the Benin kingdom. There's no such thing as Benin in the ancient times. It's Ubini.
Mm.
You see, it's Ubini kingdom, and the Europeans corrupted it, and now you have the Benin kingdom and you have the Republic of Benin. You see, and the Republic of Benin was Dahomey. You see,
Right. Well,
now
was it? But now, was it all of Benin at one time called the Kingdom of Dahomey?
Dahomey, yes,
Yeah.
that was
Okay.
the Republic of Benin. Now, you see, so we need to, at least at our level, we can borrow some of the writing systems from our African folk because we have developed more than enough. I'm telling you, there's so much variety for all the different kinds of languages. We can borrow some of them for our own internal communication, at least. You see, I was learning the Abugidas, the GIS writing system. Is very simple to learn, and you can apply it to any language basically you want as a writing system. So I don't see why we are not doing that, and we are borrowing writing systems that are not equipped enough to retain the meanings of our names. Names are very important. Names are spirits.
Right.
You see, so we need to retain this. And as far as education is concerned, we if we had adopted these writing systems at the local level, we could have been, training our people even at the lowest level. Farmers and so on could be literate in their own language using an African script. You see, and so there's no reason why Africa today should be scrambling over a writing system that was even developed derived from Africa itself in Europe, and we leave our writing systems and not use them. The least we can do is to keep these alive and use them as extensively as possible.
Okay, let's see if we got any questions. First of all, I wanna give a shout out to everybody in the chat room. Victor, I see you. Global African, I see you. Jim Denson, all the regulars who are consistent and continue to support. I really appreciate it. Melissa, I see you as well. Chocolate, I mean, everybody. Linnell, thank you. Everybody, thank you for coming on and participating and joining us and supporting the brother Awini. Also, we have the GoFundMe. In fact, let me post that right now in the chat. The GoFundMe, so we can make sure Awini gets where he wants to go as far as his education,
Mm-hmm.
his education goals. So let me go ahead and post that link right now as well. But go ahead and continue.
So what I want to charge people, especially those of people who are in the area of literacy, teaching, and writing and what have you, those who are developed in that area, I would charge you to make inquiries into the African writing systems, look through them, select at least one writing system. I can easily recommend the GIS from Ethiopia. Why? Because it's alive. It's currently being used, and you can pick up a lot from that. But also other writing systems as well. We can pick from the writing systems and begin to apply them to certain things within our system. Eventually, when Africa is truly liberated, we're going to have to fall on our own writing systems. There's no reason why. You go to India, they use the Sanskrit. You know, you go to China, they use the Chinese scripts. You go to Japan, they have their own writing. It is only in the case of Africa. You come to Europe, they use the Latin across board. It's only in the case of Africa that you find that it's not widely used. It's only Ethiopia right now that I can say is still holding on, even though from what I read, they're going through a lot of reforms. People are being convinced why they shouldn't continue using their language. I've read a lot of debates on this, intellectual papers and so on. But why couldn't we use our own?
Mm-hmm.
You know, why not? I was even to hear that the Wolof also has some sort of writing from Senegal. Uh, you
Uh,
know,
Okay.
Yeah, I have a particular interest in, you see, the Wolof and the Sierra people that I talked about the last time. They're very closely related, and the Sierra are very interesting to me because they they are believed to have migrated from ancient Kemet quite recently, because they have a set. They, first of all, they have more festivals than any religion in the world. The Sierra religion has more festivals than any religion I have come across.
Mhm.
Uh, they they they, they hold the star, the Sirius star, just like the Dogon.
Oh, okay. Well, again, you said these people are in Senegal.
Sierra, yeah, Serer.
S S. Hold on, there, bro. Hey, I got it right. I got man. Okay, here we go. Spell it. Spell it one more time. Spell it one more time.
Serer.
Sarah. All right, got it. Let me. Because I'll go. You know, when I go to Senegal in a couple weeks, I'll actually go and visit them if I have time. Let me.
Have you been to the stone glyphs in Senegal? These are
Listen.
these are
Listen. I've
these are
only
in the
been when I go to Senegal. I stay in a couple days in Dakar, and I go straight to Tuba and back to Dakar. I haven't really been anywhere, but I was
uh,
wanting to see more. It's just my time is so limited when I go. That's the only issue.
yeah, you need to go to the heart of Sierra, which is scene. That's another city. They have these stone circles. If you look up the Sierra, you'll see them. They have these stone circles that some people claim that they were worship centers and so on. But one other interesting thing about them is they also bury their kings in pyramid-like tombs, and they used to mummify, according to what I have read, that they used to mummify the remains of their kings to prepare them for the afterlife. And they believe they're also monotheistic. They believe in the supreme deity that created the universe, called Rouge. You know, uh, so they retain a lot of things, and we need to learn from each other. Honestly, I do a lot of. I'm crazy when it comes to. I spend the whole night just reading off several different groups of Africans, and I find a lot of similarities, between there and here. Even the languages, you know, are very similar. The culture, and so on. And so, yeah, the Sierra definitely. I wish could come to Senegal, but definitely the Sierra are worth looking into. They have a religion called Fat Rouge. That is their religion. When you read about the Sierra, you'll come across this Fat Rouge, and it's a whole system, that they have developed for themselves, and so on. So basically, what I would like, uh, especially those who are educationists and so on, is at least familiarize yourself writing system of Africa. You go online and you run a system. Them contact Dynex to contact me. I'll send you links to some of these, and you can easily understand the writing systems because they put the Roman conversions right next to each alphabet, so you know what you get, the value you get when you apply them. You see, so it's very important to use and not lose our systems of writing. And if we don't do this, then 500 years, 1,000 years to come, we will have officially no writing, and that's when our children, our descendants, are going to, you know, curse us and say that we didn't do enough.
Right.
Just like some of us blame our ancestors now for not for being politically naive and not seeing the danger in associating with certain outsiders who later on turned on them. You see, So we need to be conscious about what we're doing and the implications that this has for our descendants. And we have a duty to work for our descendants. This is the most sacred duty that any group of people have, and we cannot afford to live selfishly and say that it's all about us as in
Right.
individual beings. We need to have that collective. We need to gain it back. We've always had it, but somehow attitudes are changing, and the circumstances are making it difficult for us to revert to, because we are a communal people. We have our faults and so on, but we did keep a tight web in the community. We raised each other's children. So if you look at the African models, children going out to play, you wouldn't have to worry because they play in the neighborhood, and any parent, adult, would treat the child like their own. So when they see them doing something wrong, they will rebuke them. you know and that's what we need to get back into. Cost money to do. It's just a matter of changing our minds. And so the Africans in Kenya, I forgot the tribe, but they have a practice. One of the tribes in Kenya, they have a practice in the community. When you do something wrong, the community will bring you, and they'll bring you to the center, and they will tell you all the good things you have done. Something wrong, they will not rebuke you, and they will rather tell you how great you have been, all the good things you have done. And this will make you feel that you need to keep measuring up to yourself. And so win the community. And some of them, when I read them, I was in tears because about this writing, some of them, got the writing, they developed them through dreams. They had these dreams, and people people would come to them and say, you need to do this for black people, you see. And they would get up and begin to work toward these writing systems, because they were trying to make a name for all of us, you see. So we need to, you know, try not to be selfish in our lives, because it's not about us alone. This is what we need to realize. We are a community. Whether we recognize ourselves as African or not, we are still one people. The world always will see us as one people.
Right.
They identify us by each other because we look like each other. So why not? You see? So it doesn't matter whether you agree or not. Those who unfortunately have not yet grown in the understand the consciousness, it doesn't matter whether you want to identify with Africa or not. You're still African, and the world will treat you as an African.
Exactly. And listen,
So it's
that's
not.
what I'm trying to tell these. I'm Native American. I'm not African people. Like, okay, but you're still being treated as African. And again, even though you're native
Mhm.
to here, you still originated from Africa. But go ahead.
Yeah. So if when we move away from this line of thinking, then we will begin to see progress. Because right now it's just everybody doing their own thing. Nobody wants to come together. That's why I came on here. I've been trying to get yourself, O'Shea, and some other brothers, and if possible, some sisters, to just have this sort of conversation, and so on. It's not about an individualistic, thing. It's about people coming together to, you know, examine their circumstance in the world, and to see what they can do about that circumstance. And it's not a one person job. And I feel very sorry for people like Malcolm X and Marcus Garvey, Kwame Nkrumah, and others, because they were fighting alone.
Right.
The rest of us Some of us were not there, but those who were young didn't understand what they were trying to do. Those who had a bit of understanding were still confused. Some of them were still working against our people, you see. So it just goes to show we are our worst enemy. People don't want to admit this, but we are our worst enemy because we don't keep the family together. If you keep a close net together, nothing can pass through, you see.
Right.
So we we need to go back and nurture that. I'm not saying that Africans are perfect and we are essentially good, but at least the community had standards. That's the difference. Response to doing bad things was that we are not going to tolerate this. It didn't mean that we didn't have bad exit among us. We always have had these people, but the community's response that was that we're not going to give you the space to operate. And if you work against us, then we will take care of you. We're not going to allow an individual's interest to come before the communal interest. You see, so we need to fashion out what is our response to what is happening right now. You see, and the way we can do that is again to take our time, reflect, go back. Sometimes you need to go back in order to you need to look back in order to look forward. You see,
Right.
so we need to look at what we can use practically. Because we're fighting a very sophisticated war now. People are talking about arms. It's not about that. Look, American lifestyle is here in Africa, as you have seen. If you've been to a lot of capital cities, globalization is a new thing. It's making it possible for a lot of influences to come into the African community. If you watch the movies today, this newborn homosexual, you know, behavior is being made the cool thing, and our people, some of them are being used as role models for this new behavior and whatnot. So nobody needs to pick up arms today to make Africans worldwide go astray, push things into our minds, push ideologies in, change our belief systems, change our lifestyles, and then we're going to be living according to what the way they want. So the new battlefield is the mind.
Mm.
It's the mind. That's the only place we're going to win. And the reason we can win is nobody, if we don't allow anybody to penetrate our minds, they're not going to be able to. So we need to build our defense mechanisms. That's why the other day we talked about what is going on in the African mind, and we're just preoccupying the mind with very confusing thoughts. We're not focusing the thoughts.
Right.
We need to focus the thought.
Right.
The way to focus the thought is to silence. See, we are living in a fast-moving world. Everything is so fast. The mind is trying to process. We need to silence all that because we are constantly caught in this, fast-moving world, and a lot of things just preoccupying the mind. And before you realize, you're in your 50s, your 60s, and then you're gone, and it continues. The only way we can gain back that consciousness is to step back and relook at the situation. You see? So I think I'm done. I hope the writing systems issue go on. I don't. I make it a point to address anybody, racist or whoever, brings up this issue of Africans or illiterates. I make it a point to give them the evidence and let them deal with it.
Absolutely. Awini, thank you so much for coming back on. I really, we're always happy to hear from you and seeing you. You are definitely a favorite of the
Mm.
community over here on Search for Who. So, man, I I appreciate you for coming back on. Anything else you want to share in closing? Also, please give people your contact information. Also, you guys, I
Yeah.
posted in the chat room the link to Awini's GoFundMe. So please make sure you guys support that. Please do. Also put it in the description as well. But go ahead, Awini. The floor. Go ahead and close out. The floor is yours.
Yeah. So I'm developing my special areas of interest as in profession is in the shipping and housing industries. So currently, I'm trying to pursue an MBA in maritime logistics, and so uh, Dynast has been kind enough to help me to start a GoFundMe page, and I hope he has made it available to you. I only got a partial scholarship, so 25% of the cost slashed because of my good academic performances. Uh, but it will be very appreciated if some of our people in the community would be of assistance. I'm very open to even loan systems, which I can pay back. I have collateral. The problem with getting those kinds of loans in Africa, the other day we were discussing, is that uh, it's very ridiculously high in interest rates. You see, so I'm open to discuss loan systems. Small amounts, uh, and which I would definitely pay back. The issue of free giving is something that is dying off in our community, and it's understandable. Everybody has their problems, so that is my plea to those who can be of help. And if you can make a donation or reach out to me, we can discuss a loan system if you would prefer that, and I'm good for it. So I'll put out my contact details. Reach me these days. I'm just on WhatsApp. Reach me on WhatsApp on +233 249 831 251. That's +233 249 831 251. Thank you.
Okay. All right, you guys, and I just want to thank everybody for coming out. Just thank you for again coming out. I really appreciate it, especially on this Sunday night. We got Sunday night football. Some of you guys, might watch that, but you chose to join us. Make sure you go to Instagram, search for Huru. Please follow and like the videos. Also, please go to search for Huru.com, DynaSamir.com, and also Amazon.com. Search your name, Samir. I'm sorry, search your name, Samir on Amazon. Also go to Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, and Instagram. Search for Huru. Please reach out to me. Follow me on those platforms. If you're new to this page, please subscribe. Make sure you guys are liking the videos. Make sure you guys are sharing the videos. Let's get the word out here. I appreciate the support, people. Until next time, I might come on later on tonight. Probably won't, but there's a slight chance I might. But you'll definitely hear from me again this week, either Monday or Tuesday. But again, people, thank you for coming on. Till next time, search for Huru, the Confidant Don. Peace.